Hey everyone, welcome back. So I'm really excited to get into today's explainer because we're looking at a scenario playing out in boardrooms literally all over the world right now. Let's set the stage. Imagine you're Martin Schmidt. You've just stepped into the CEO role at Office Ausstatten GmbH. It's this highly successful office equipment company, been around for 35 years. Proud legacy built by your predecessor, Klaus. But, well, there's a massive catch. Under Klaus's old-school leadership, the company has completely stagnated. The old playbook? It's just not working anymore. Martin is standing right in the path of a modern digital storm, and the stakes for survival, they couldn't be higher.
Okay, let's dive into this. How on earth does a 35-year-old company actually become future-proof? I mean, how does Martin adapt to those rusty, old leadership structures to actually survive the digital era? Look, it is so tempting to just, throw a bunch of money at shiny new software and call it a day, right? But as we'll see in this explainer, true future-proofing has almost nothing to do with what computers you buy and literally everything to do with how you lead the human beings using them.
So let's start with Section 1, the threat, or as I like to call it, the digital tsunami.
Before Martin can fix things internally, he's got to look out the window and grasp the sheer scale of the danger heading straight for his business. Digital disruption goes way, way beyond just updating your IT systems. It is a literal tsunami of entirely new business models that can wash a legacy company away in months. First up, he faces what we call the piranha effect. Picture fast-moving, hyper-agile, self-organized startups. They don't try to swallow a massive legacy company whole. No way. Instead, they use these disruptive, purely digital models to just take aggressive little bites out of your real-world market share. Think about how Uber chipped away at heavily regulated taxi markets without owning a single car. They're quick, they're hungry, and they are absolutely everywhere.
But, Martin can't just look down at the piranhas. He's got to look up at the elephants. And that brings us to the elephant effect. This is the wild reality that massive, established tech giants can suddenly pivot and just crush their way into slow-moving traditional industries pretty much overnight. Just think about how Amazon used its massive digital infrastructure to stomp right into the physical grocery business with Amazon Fresh. So Martin's mid-sized business is caught right in the middle, right? Getting nibbled from below by startups and totally threatened with getting stomped from above by tech giants.
To fight back against all this, Martin needs a real strategy. He has to restructure using the 3P model. Step 1, digital processes. This means automating internal workflows to actually build a modern data foundation. Step 2 is digital products, so enhancing existing physical office equipment with new digital services. And Step 3, digital platforms, which means building customer-facing market platforms. But, and here is the absolute massive roadblock, Martin cannot possibly execute this 3P strategy if his managers are still leading like it's 1990.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the leadership shift.
To survive, Martin absolutely cannot lead like Klaus did. He has to actually dismantle the very management structures that made the company successful for 3 decades. And this brilliantly illustrates the core difference. On one hand, we've got the 20th century model, command and control. This is Klaus's playbook. It's based on linear thinking, strict micromanagement, and, honestly, a foundational mistrust of the workforce. The manager is this all-knowing controller planning every tiny detail. But today, modern companies are complex social networks operating in basically constant chaos. So the 21st century model demands self-organization. It replaces mistrust with autonomy and strict hierarchy with networks built entirely on trust. You simply cannot micromanage your way through a digital tsunami.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, think of modern leadership as a team sport. Specifically, think of a soccer coach. The manager is the coach on the sidelines. They set the roster, they determine the overarching strategy and the parameters, and they prepare the team, right? But once that whistle blows, the coach cannot run onto the field and start kicking the ball for the players. The team absolutely has to self-organize in real time right there on the pitch. Modern's managers have to stop trying to kick the ball and actually start coaching from the sidelines. Now, to become that kind of coach, Martin and his management team really need to develop 3 core digital leadership competencies. First up is the digital mindset. That's the wanting. They must genuinely have curiosity and a real openness to change. Second, digital skills, the knowing. You obviously can't lead a digital shift without a foundational understanding of data and new tech. And finally, digital execution, the doing. You have to actually take that mindset and knowledge and confidently implement it into your daily business. So it's wanting, knowing, and doing.
And that leads us right into Section 3,
the Implementation Framework, or the CDE model.
Okay, so knowing you need to be a coach is great in theory, but how does Martin actually implement this on a random Monday morning? Well, it starts with C for container. As a leader, your main job is to set the container in which your self-organizing team operates. You do not hand out a list of 50 daily tasks. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you define a crystal clear mission and vision. You establish explicit, totally non-negotiable rules. And most importantly, you provide the necessary budget, tools, and resources. Essentially, you build a safe, well-equipped sandbox, and then you step back and let the experts play in it.
Next up is D for differences. Look, Office Ausstatten BMB is full of people from totally different backgrounds, ages, and skill sets. A modern leader has to harness these diverse perspectives by balancing similarity with difference. You build basic respect and trust among the team so these differences actually become productive instead of destructive. And here's the real kicker. Authority must shift away from job titles and move directly to wherever the actual competence sits. So if the 24-year-old junior developer knows the software best, they hold the authority in that room, not the 50-year-old vice president.
Let's move to and see how this builds right into our final letter. E stands for exchange. In a complex, fast-moving world, information is your absolute biggest competitive advantage. Martin's leaders must actively break down those old departmental silos and promote totally transparent information flow. No more hoarding knowledge just to protect your job. This means implementing regular retrospectives, doing daily stand-up meetings, and having transparent product presentations so literally everyone is always in the loop.
Moving on to Section 4, the human element, and specifically, mastering resistance.
We really have to acknowledge a fundamental truth here. Change brings fear. When Martin walks in and tells people who've worked a certain way for 35 years that, hey, everything is changing, he is absolutely going to encounter shock and heavy resistance. He has to approach this with deep empathy, not just spreadsheets, right? Especially across these 6 central roadblocks. First, just a simple lack of insight. People don't see why change is even necessary. Second, poor role models at the top. Third, a sheer missing know-how for digital processes. Fourth, you've got those vicious departmental turf wars over shrinking legacy budgets. Fifth, a lack of new reward systems for the new behaviors. And sixth, plain old stubborn unwillingness. So how do we fix it? Well, we all know that one person in the office who loudly complains every single time a new software update is announced, right? The strategy here is actually brilliant. Turn affected people into participants. Bring your absolute loudest critics directly into the transformation team. Give them a real role. Suddenly, all that disruptive energy becomes productive momentum. It's a game changer. Martin also has to foster emotional acceptance to really intense, honest communication and use team moderation to let employees solve their own friction points rather than just forcing some top-down mandate.
And that brings us to our final act, Section 5, Continuous Transformation.
Martin has to make his company understand that this isn't just some software installation with an end date, It's a permanent state of adaptation. And this requires a really specific skill called digital ambidexterity. It's basically the ultimate corporate balancing act. Martin has to flawlessly manage the existing core business, selling real office equipment to real people, which, let's be honest, pays the current bills, while simultaneously funding, driving, and protecting new, risky digital innovations. You literally have to keep the legacy lights on with your left hand while inventing the future with your right hand. So the crucial point is summarized beautifully in this quote. Digital transformation must first begin in the minds and hearts of the leaders. Before you change a single process, before you launch a single new app, the culture and the mindset of the management team absolutely must evolve. If Clouds' old mindset sticks around, all of Martin's fancy new technology will completely fail. Mindset and culture beat tech every single time.
Which leaves us with this final, vital question to ask ourselves about our own workplaces. Are you acting as a controller of the past or an enabler of the future? Are you micromanaging every play on the field, or are you coaching from the sidelines and setting the container for your team's brilliance? I really hope this explainer gave you some fantastic insights into the true nature of digital leadership. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep enabling the future.